Hi, and welcome back to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm Lisa Curcio. My card today is going to teach you how to use the Stampin Blends to color in some omitted areas on your designer series paper. Here's the birthday card we're going to create today. Lots of fun and super easy. It's one of those cards you can make a bunch of in one sitting. And the great news is you're going to be able to use the scraps of your designer series paper in a really effective way. If you're here visiting from YouTube, you'll find a link down in the video description below, which will navigate you over to the pictures and cutting dimensions for today's card. And if this is your first time visiting my YouTube channel, I would love to encourage you to subscribe. Click the subscribe button below and make sure you click the bell icon that's next to it. That will give you notifications of when I upload a new video, as well as when I'm live here on YouTube. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's card. Here's a close-up of the card we're going to be creating together today. Isn't this cute? Now keep in mind you're going to be able to change the color palette on this by simply changing the one ink pad and the Stampin' Blends. Since we're going to be using the Stampin' Blends, I'm going to bring in the small grid paper to protect my work surface. Remember, those are alcohol-based markers, and I'm going to be using the Dark Pool Party today. And I've got a piece of designer series paper here from the Broadway bound specialty designer series paper. It is double-sided, and you're going to see that one side has a really beautiful foil finish. There's lots of really fun patterns inside that package. You'll find them in the annual catalog. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a complimentary copy of the annual catalog and the occasions catalog, I'd be more than happy to send them to you. Just leave me a comment below. I'm going to be using the brush tip of my Stampin' Blends to color in just some of those circles for a focal point. You're going to be able to see the size of the tip really clearly by the line here on the base. So the thick line is going to indicate the thick tip. I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I have mounted the adorable birthday hat. This is from the stamp set called Broadway Birthday. You can buy the stamp set separately, but it has coordinating framelits I know that you're going to absolutely love. Look at that cool marquee die here. Some really fun images, and of course they die cut everything that's inside the stamp set. If you purchase it as a bundle, it will save you 10% on the overall purchase versus buying them separately. I always say buy in a bundle because who wants to fussy cut those pieces, right? I'm going to be using my Memento ink pad for this since I'm going to use my Stampin' Blends to color it in as well. This is a water-based ink and it will not bleed with the alcohol-based markers. I'll go ahead and I'll ink that up and then I'll stamp that here on my scrap Whisper White cardstock. This time I'm going to use the thin or chiseled tip of the Stampin' Blends just so I can stay within the lines here. My tip for you is to outline the hat. That'll allow you a perimeter and then you can go ahead and color in and you're going to see how I'm going right over those black lines. Remember, this ink will not bleed with the Stampin' Blends. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of color inside the top streamers of this hat as well. We're going to die cut the hat from the coordinating framelit. So I've got my magnetic platform here. This is just my platform of choice. The regular platform that comes with your Big Shot and the thin die adapter will work fine. I'm just a fan of this because it's going to help hold them in place. I'm going to place a clear cutting mat on the bottom to protect it, and I'm going to lay my image here. I'm going to take my party hat, I'm going to lay that over the top. Now if you're having some slipping like I am here, let me give you a tip. I'm going to use a Post-it note to secure it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up. And once I have it where I want it, the sticky edge of my Post-it note, I'm going to lay right across my die. That's going to secure it in place. I'll place the other clear mat over the top to protect my die, and then we'll just crank that through. My next step is going to be to adhere that designer series paper to the left side of my white cardstock layer. I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet because I'm going to be adding some adhesive to this narrow strip. I absolutely love this product and I think it's a great accessory in your stamp room. Adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue will not stick to it. It simply rubs right off. That's going to ensure that you're going to keep your work surface sticky free. I'm going to flip this over and you're going to see the Stampin' Blends have bled through the paper, which is why I protected my work surface. That's the sign of a good alcohol marker. I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive to the back side. Now you're going to notice that this strip is a lot longer than what we're going to need on our card, and that's because I want to give you a tip. I have more luck working horizontally of getting things straight than trying to do this vertically. So I'm going to lay this down on here, and I'm looking at the very edge closest to me to align that paper. and then I'll press that in place. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut away the excess using this white cardstock as a guide to get a perfect edge. Now I keep a pair of scissors here in my stamp studio that are designated strictly for sticky projects. That's what the red ribbon indicates. So I'm going to come up along here, and then I'm just going to cut. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. If you have ever had a piece of paper that you've cut and you thought it was identical, but it was a little bit short at the top or the bottom, that happens to all of us. I mean, we can be off by just a smidge and it's visible. So cut it a little bit longer and then trim from the back. My next step is to add the greeting, and I'm going to be using Pool Party ink, which is coordinating with that Stampin' Blends. And from that stamp set, I want to point out a few pieces to you. The word wish is the one we're going to use today, but there's also the one hooray. And you're going to notice the dotted images here that correspond with those, and I'm going to show you how those work. I'm going to take the word wish and I'm going to ink that up on my Pool Party ink pad. Now I know that this is going to have to be at the very far lower right of my Whisper White cardstock in order for it to fit. So I'm going to go ahead and place it down here. This is the image with the dots. And of course I could mount it on my block, but I'll be honest with you, I had a tough time getting it perfectly aligned, even though it is photopolymer. So guess what we're going to use? We're going to use the Stamparatus, which is Stampin' Up's positioning tool. And I absolutely love this thing, especially for two-step stamping where one image is going to get aligned over the other. So I'm going to place my cardstock here. I've got one of the heavy natural weighted magnets. It does come with two. I only need one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this image and I'm going to place it on top of the stamp on the cardstock and line it up exactly where I want it. And once I'm happy with it, I'm going to take this clear edge, this plate, and I'm going to press. And what's going to happen is that image is going to stick to the plate. Now what I can do is I can come in with my Memento ink and I'm going to ink it up. Now, it might be difficult to see because those dots are small. And then I'm going to close that hinge. And then I'm going to press. Remember, we pre-aligned it before we started, so I know it's going to be perfect. Now, some of you may be wondering how to clean this. Do I have to peel it off? And I want to give you another great tip. I purchased a Stampin' Chamois, which of course we absolutely love for cleanup. But I purchased a second one and I cut it in half. So this is just half. It's a little bit more manageable to use, and I can fold it to make it even smaller, and I can clean it right here while it's on the plate. And then of course, if it's really dirty with a darker color, I can go ahead and turn this and then dry it off. And then all you have to do is simply pull this off your plate. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've got a little bit of black ink on here from the ink pad itself, which is normal. So I'm going to come over here with my chamois and I'm just going to wipe that off. You never want to use cleaners or abrasives on this plate. So you want to make sure that you're using just water. I'll go ahead now and remove that magnet. This is why I put a piece of washi tape on there. They're very, very strong. As a matter of fact, you want to make sure that the two magnets that come with this don't come in close contact with each other because they can break. I now have the remainder of my greeting that I can stamp at the top. And of course, you can use your Stamparatus once again if you'd like. But I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. I've got it on my clear block. And I'm going to stamp this right over the top of the word wish. I'm going to bring my silicone craft sheet back in, and this time I'm going to add adhesive to the back side. I'm working in each of my four corners. The snail adhesive is really easy to use and it's very abundant. You get 472 inches of permanent adhesive in the dispenser, and it's refillable for just $4.50. And I'm going to place that here on a layer of Pool Party cardstock. You're going to see I'm going to leave a very small border of color all the way around, and then I'll tack that in place. Remember our party hat? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to use my mini dimensionals. Those are a lot smaller and a lot easier to use. So I'll go ahead and I'll pull those off. I'm going to place one here at the top and then a couple down the center. I'm very aware that my card is going to go through the mail meter at the post office. So I'm always like to make sure that I've got a sufficient number of dimensionals on the back to make sure that it comes out well balanced when it's received. And I'm going to mount that right over the R and the word never. I'm going to add some baker's twine between these layers here, just to give this some definition and to bring out that black. This is solid black baker's twine. So I'm going to come around the back side. I'm going to leave myself a good tail so I can tie, and I'm going to come around here twice. Once I'm here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors, and I'm going to cut off the other end. Now, if you're like me, you often will make the tie and then you'll have a hard time keeping the tension. So I want to give you another tip. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to make sure that my baker's twine is lined up side by side. I'm going to come in with my glue dots. This is just a great little paper crafting secret for you. You're going to place that glue dot on that paper where you're going to want to make that tie, and it's going to keep the tension for you. I'm going to be using my Take Your Pick pickup tool. The putty tip is great for picking up sequins and small pieces of paper. The interchangeable tip on this side has my paper piercing tool on it. It also comes with a double-sided stylus tool, and it has a small spatula for getting up underneath those dimensionals you may have accidentally placed in the wrong place. It also comes with a putty refill, and it retails for $10. It is fantastic. It is new, so it's not in any of the current Stampin' Up! Publications, but it is on my website at lisasstampstudio.com. I'm going to go ahead and reveal one of those glue dots, and that's probably a little difficult to see here on camera, and then I'm going to roll it up. I'm really not even worried about what shape it is. And then knowing I want to put it here near the top, I'm going to place it there and I'm going to push it right off that paper piercing tip. I'm going to bring up my baker's twine to that area, and I'll straighten out the bottom half in just a minute, and I'm pressing that tie right on top of that glue dot. And you can see now it's going to hold it in place for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a knot. I find with very thin ribbons and twine, I like to make a knot just to make sure it doesn't come undone coming in and out of the envelope. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my bow. Now, if your ends are lopsided and they're too big, here's another tip for you. Put your finger here on the knot, take your loose end, and then just gently pull. That's going to adjust the loop size for you. And then when you're happy with it, just give it one more tug. And then I'll come in here with my paper snips and I'll just cut away the excess of what I don't want. This layer now is ready for the card base. And this color is gray granite, and that's the color that I have here. I've scored it just ahead of the video in half, and I'm going to go ahead and fold that. And I am a big fan of my bone folder for those nice crisp edges on my card, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. This is going to get mounted on the card base. Because of the baker's twine, you risk some lifting across these areas. So I want to give you another tip. You can place glue dots here and here, or you can use tear and tape. You're simply going to leave it on the roll, and you're going to roll it out, put your fingernail where you want it to end, and then rip. And then we're going to do the same thing here across the bottom. The reason I prefer this over glue dots is simply because it's going to go over that twine and hold it in place a little bit better. And then I'll fill up my sides as well. And of course, I probably don't even need quite this much, but just want to make sure the card is good and balanced. It's very important that you burnish that paper backing down inside the paper, because we are going to lift that off in just a second to reveal the other sticky side. And then back to my pickup tool, and I'm going to use that paper piercing tool to release that paper backing, and I'll do that all the way around. Tear and tape is very, very strong, so it's not forgiving. So you want to make sure you've got it right where you want it before you stick it down. Again, I'm looking visually to see if I have a small border of color all the way around. And then once I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead and tack it down. I like to rub from the back because I invariably have ink all over my fingers, and I don't want it on the front of my card. So I'm just going to go ahead and now rub around the perimeter where we put the tear and tape, and then there we go. We've got our card. So here's the card we created together today. Here's the one I created before you joined me. Pull out those scraps of Designer Series paper and break out your Stampin' Blends alcohol markers and have a fun time coloring these in. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. That's a like here on YouTube. And then head over to my website at lisasstampstudio.com, where you can purchase the products there and check out my rewards. I provide very generous and exclusive rewards to my customers. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.